Welcome to this Interpreting Wine's first ever wine audio masterclass series, a collection of talks and tastings with experts and producers. I'm, of course, your host and podcast founder, Lawrence Francis. Between them, these episodes show that audio can be used to both educate and engage audiences at this most challenging of times for wine producers and importers. And if you like what you hear and would like to discuss producing content like this for your brand, including the costs and what's included, please do book time in my diary directly at interpretingwine.com/call. Today's episode of the Wine Audio Masterclass series continues coverage of the event held at Lady of the Grapes and features Wendy Outhwaite, winemaker at Ambriel Winery in Sussex. She talks experimentation, and we learn why she thinks English wine production is so exciting at the moment, before leading a tasting of three of her wines: the Ambriel Brut Classic Cuvée, the Ambriel Blanc de Blanc Brut 2010, and the Ambriel Rosé 2013. Enjoy.
So yes, this has been the world premiere of the Ambriel Rosé 2014. I do hope you liked it. And I'm sorry it was a bit warm. We probably had the popping. It doesn't usually pop like that, but anyone who suffered any injuries, let me know. Carol will sort you out. So cat's out of the bag. Yes, I did have a former life. I was a barrister. I still am a barrister technically, but I don't practice. So I used to go to court for 22 years, and in 2010 I became a QC, which is great. If you've ever loved dressing up, being a barrister is the way to go. You start off with a short wig and a medieval gown. You see, barristers always are a bit pompous. They hold on to their gowns. It's because medieval people didn't know how to do sleeves, so your gown was weighted so it falls off the back of your back, so you're constantly hoisting it up. But then if you get to be a QC, you just leap ahead to Tudor fashion, and you can have sleeves. And it's called taking silk because you wear a silk gown. And I can tell you, my IQ points probably went up by about 10% when I went into court in a silk gown, because suddenly judges who've been a teensy bit difficult are just a joy. So I hugely recommend all of you to go and take silk. It's a great thing to do. But then I left it. And I now make wine in Sussex, and we only make English sparkling wine. I had to say, English sparkling wine is one of those things that is just absolutely brilliant at the moment. England is, in my opinion, the most exciting place to make wine at the moment, because it's new, because there is not an enormous amount of regulation, so you have the best opportunity to experiment and to find things that work, and also things that don't work. But what a joy it is to be able to play. That's what I do every day. I go and play, and it's brilliant. And you're going to have to suspend some disbelief here, we have a brilliant climate, okay? We do. This green and pleasant land is the place to be at the moment, and I'll tell you why. Anyone who's ever eaten a Scottish raspberry will know that the place where you ripen your fruit best is at the northernmost rim of where you can ripen it. And so, in my opinion, and I'm very sorry for any Spaniards that are here, your raspberries are delicious, but not quite as delicious as a Scottish raspberry, because it just gently, over a long season, puts on its phenolics. And it's the same for grapes. If you have a really long ripening season, you can just gently lay down your flavours. You're not getting these huge bursts of sugar, which means you have to pick the damn thing, whether you want to or not, because you're worried about the legal alcohol limits. It's a really good place to make wine. And also, because we're quite a young tradition, I know the Romans were here and they probably planted vines. But since then, I think we have to recognise there has been a bit of a lull. But just recently, we've redone vineyards, and it means all those things that perhaps other people have had from a monoculture over centuries, ravaging the vineyards before we understood soil importance, maybe building up a cohort of unhelpful pests. We don't have. Our most troublesome pest is the badger that I can tell you comes in South Vineyard, row 97, and leaves very unpleasant messes all over the place at harvest time, and that's about it. So making wine in England is easy and it's fun, and I hope you like the wines. So this wine is a Chardonnay dominant wine. So for those of you who are interested in grape varieties, it's 73% Chardonnay, 25% Pinot Noir, the other 2% are Pinot Meunier. It's coming mostly from the 2011 harvest. We don't malolactic our wines. I'm not saying we will never malolactic our wines, but we think one of the things that's absolutely a hallmark of an English sparkling is the structure, the freshness, the acidity, which you either love or you don't. And I don't mind about that. I think this is authentically itself. So what we do, though, is because we don't malolactic, we age. So you'll find for our white sparkling, so this one and the Blanc de Blanc that we're going to taste in a mo, it spent 6 years on the bottle lees. That's quite a long time for an English sparkling, but that's what the wine needs. So this is, it's got 8.5 grams per litre dosage. It's spent 6 years on the bottle lees. It's 12% alcohol. This is a wine that I just can't help loving, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't make it. I have no idea how it goes with pig fingers. That's a new one on me, but I'm sure it's absolutely delicious. Someone tell me whether the pairing is good. It's good? I'm seeing smiles. Pig finger looks absolutely delicious. I thought the next wine we would try is the Blanc de Blanc. Now, this is the most structured wine that we have. It is, of course, 100% Chardonnay. It has also spent 6 years on the lees. This is from our very first harvest. Now, we were so excited to meet our fruit after so many years waiting that we did slightly go nuts and make every style of sparkling wine that you could think. Commercially, a ridiculous thing to do, but really, really exciting to see how the grapes were going to work. And this is from a particular block in the vineyard, romantically called Block 12 in the north of England. And it is for people who like structure. It's quite low dosage. So it's one of those things that actually I have had people call me up in the middle of the night saying to me, oh, what's the TA on this? And in my very British apologetic way, I've said, oh, it's this. And they're like, wow. And suddenly, you know, the things go around the world. Look at the freshness on this. So it very much depends on your point of view. But in a post-Parker world, if you're not for a fruit bomb or something flabby, then this kind of zinginess, this sort of zingy zestiness that you find in this particular Chardonnay and other Blanc de Blancs like it from England are absolutely brilliant. So our vineyards are in West Sussex, overlooking the South Downs, and it's a great place to be because you're going to have to watch the hand signals now, I'm afraid. But here's the sea, and then you have the South Downs, and then behind it you have a thing called the Weald, which is a big hump of mostly clay. We don't want to be on clay in England. Oh, thank you. But we are on a little hill in the middle, and we're on a very thin seam of soil called green sand, which, in my personal opinion, is the soil of choice in England. And I'll tell you why. A lot of people choose chalk, and chalk is fantastic because it lets the water drain through. And as you know, vines are usually a couple of meters on trellising, and that's great, but what they want to be is a huge 12, 20 meter plant in the jungle, climbing up something with just one bunch of unripe grapes there, just enough to attract a bird. And the moment they get water, they think, wow, let's release our inner triffid, and off they go, sprouting out laterals everywhere, which we then have to come along and rip off. Not great. So we like the water to go away. And the thing with chalk is it runs through the chalk and then it hits that fantastic limestone. So you'll know all those amazing, cool limestone cellars. The reason why they're cool is because they've got a big water tank around them, insulating them. And vines can get there. Vine roots can go for miles, not literally miles, but a very long way. So we think that getting the rainwater, because let's face it, we will never have to irrigate in England, getting the rainwater away from the vine is a good thing. But also, the green sand rock is quite near the surface. It's actually either on the surface or half a metre down. And that means that when the sun shines, it heats up the vineyard and it stores the heat. So you get much less diurnal temperatures over the course of a day. So your vineyard heats up hotter and stays warmer longer, and the rocks there reflect the heat to ripen the grapes. And as a result of that, you can get very dramatic in grape terms, temperature differences in our vineyard that's on green sand than somewhere else that isn't. It can be up to 2 degrees on the dodgy car thermometer, I have to tell you.
And that makes a real difference.
But it makes a huge difference. And so in England, where we have lots of good things about it, but the challenges are we've got rain, and sometimes it isn't always a hot summer. These little tiny changes really make a difference. So green sand is a great soil. I'm not saying it's the only soil, but green sand is a fantastic soil. There's not a lot of it around. As I say, it's a tiny little seam. So where we were, you'll remember your history, your geological history, going back thousands of years. We were all underground. So chalk is made of little crushed shells, and the green sand is the bit that was underneath it. So it's the same sort of thing. So you'll find, maybe you're tasting in the Blanc de Blanc, you tell me, but you can sometimes get a sort of a minerality that's a bit saline, a little bit of salinity in the wines, and maybe it's coming from the terroir. So where we are, we planted the vineyard from fresh. It was virgin fields, as I say, but that area has been used in the past for apple growing, and you'll see very often in various parts of the world, somewhere where they've had orchards before, very often. So I think you've had the same experience in the Napa, haven't you, where things that used to be apple orchards have then become vineyards very successfully. So it's one of those things that is absolutely beautiful. You can all come and see me, honestly, open invitation. All you've got to say is, I saw you at Lady of the Grapes, and I will pop as many corks as it takes to get you down to Sussex.
You're on record.
I think I'm... Anyway, enjoy. I'll let you have your thing. So, now we're going to change colour. We're going to go to the rosé. So the rosé that you had at the beginning, I'm going to tell you a little bit about, even though it's not in your glass, because, hey, I'm like that. So the way that usually people make rosé, and this illustrates my point about having the space in England to be able to experiment. So usually what people do for sparkling to make rosé is you take a white base wine and you take a red wine, in our case Pinot Noir, and you put it together, and then you put it in the bottle with your yeast and sugar to make bubbles. Okay? That is how you make rosé. And the wine you are about to taste is made in the traditional way. This is a high slurpability wine. Honestly, this is a joy. I've actually had to go around confiscating people's glasses because they are drinking it like water. It's relatively low alcohol in that it's only 10%. But guys, it's alcohol still. So, restrict yourself. Yes. It is true, but maybe not too many glasses. On every label we have the warning, made with care, best drunk the same way. And it applies to this wine like every other one. But this is a really, in my opinion, approachable little wine. And the inspiration behind it was a strawberry. So you know that strawberries, they stay white for a very long time so that little animals don't come along and nibble them. They're too acidic. And then just magically at the last moment, the strawberry slightly swirls and becomes really red and juicy and very sweet. And the reason why we think it's so sweet is because we have that mixture of acidity that, I'm sorry, I'm going to be a bit disgusting, makes you dribble a bit, makes you salivate into your mouth, and then that boom burst of sugar that you get in those fruity flavours. And this is very much based on that. So I have had lots of people comment on this wine, and the comments that they make are always in red fruit flavours. Wild strawberries, warmed raspberries, that kind of stuff, all red. And this wine is 90% Chardonnay. And you get all that freshness with that little burst of fruit at the end of it. And it is I think it's a charming little wine. It's not the most serious wine you'll ever drink. I have to tell you, it is a total flirt. So sip it, enjoy it with insouciance, and then move on. So the other rosé, the one that I gave you at the beginning, is made in a totally different way. So with that, we went into the East Vineyard, and we picked the Pinot Noir from rows 2 to 39. Yes, I am that boring, I can remember that. And we put it in the press, but we didn't press it. All we did is we turned the press every 3 hours for 36 hours. And the juice became stained, obviously, with the red from the skins. And then after 36 hours, we opened the press. We didn't press it at any stage. And the juice that ran out was the rosé. No one else, as far as I know, would ever make, in England, would ever make a skin contact rosé. We'd follow what the Champenois have always done, which is the traditional method, like the rosé that you have here. But isn't it fun that you can actually do something in a different way and just see what the effect is? And I'd be really interested to see, whether you have a strong preference one way or the other. So this is a nice light little wine. If you can still remember the wine you started at the beginning, made in a totally different way. And we're not even releasing it until April, so you're not under any pressure to think about buying it. It's fine. But I hope you enjoyed them both.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It was an absolute pleasure hearing your journey and transition into the wine world. All 3 wines are available in the UK with Corney and Barrow via the links below. And I've also left below the website of Ambriel Winery. We conclude coverage of the Lady of the Grapes event next time on the podcast in episode 406 with Vivien Ujvári of Barta Winery, Hungary. To subscribe to the podcast and to learn more about potentially sponsoring a series on interpreting wine, do head to interpretingwine.com. And if you're not already, I would love to have you following along with me on social media, where I'm at Interpreting Wine on Instagram and Facebook, at Wine Podcast on Twitter, and email hello@interpretingwine.com. See you next time.